Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take your sources, all your notes, your research, and together we really unpack the most powerful insights.
hmm
Today, we're diving into something, well, really transformative. It all started with this single, quite poignant email. Picture this. A woman, her sister, is grappling with alcohol addiction, and she reaches out to an author, Laura McKowen,
Right.
and she asks, "What would you have wanted to hear when your sister was struggling?" And that question, along with rediscovering these 9 things from McKowen's earlier book, We Are the Luckiest, it just became this unexpected spark for, well, a whole movement.
It's quite an origin story, isn't it? It really shows how vulnerability, just one person sharing something real at the right time, can ignite something much bigger.
Absolutely.
So our mission today, getting into Laura McKowen's push-off from here, is basically to pull out those really compelling insights, the actionable wisdom.
Yeah.
We want to try and reframe how we understand addiction, shift it away from being seen as this moral failing and more towards, well, a human condition, something that deserves compassionate healing, helping us all figure out how to move past blame, find more personal freedom, and deeper connection.
And talking about journeys, it's fascinating how Laura McKowen's own path shifted so quickly right after her first book came out, especially when the COVID pandemic hit.
Right. Everything just stopped.
Everything shut down. Even kind of surprisingly, AA meetings. So Laura, who already had this growing community around sobriety, she just decided, okay, I'll host a couple of free online support meetings.
Yeah, she sort of pieced together a format, didn't she? Took some inspiration from AA, but added things like meditation, poetry. And then on March 14th, 2020, wow, over 100 people showed up. You could almost hear the collective sigh of relief,
Yeah.
and the growth was just exponential. Within weeks, they were seeing 200, 300, even 400 people logging in from Yemen, Singapore, Australia, all over.
It wasn't just the numbers either that was striking. The people attending were so varied. You had first-timers kind of testing the waters of sobriety, people sober for years, others just curious about their drinking, and some, feeling really shaky because of the lockdowns.
Right.
So many found this community they'd never had before, often saying they'd been trying to do it alone for way too long.
And that need, it just organically led to the Luckiest Club, TLC.
Yeah.
And those original 9 things, they became the core, sort of a mission statement in how they closed every meeting.
When you connect that back to the bigger picture, the history you laid out in the notes, it really highlights this huge paradigm shift, doesn't it?
It really does. For, almost 90 years, our cultural view of addiction, especially alcohol, was so heavily shaped by AA.
Yeah.
But before the 1930s, it was mostly seen as this incurable moral failing or a sin. And the treatments, horrible. Things like purge and puke or just being locked away in asylums.
Then came Dr. Bob Smith and Bill Wilson, co-founders of AA in 1935, and their idea was revolutionary for the time. Alcoholism wasn't a sin, they said. It was this inexplicable allergy.
Right, leading to a disease, mental, physical, spiritual, and the way back. Working with other alcoholics, surrendering into a higher power, seeking a spiritual awakening.
And AA has undoubtedly helped millions. I mean, globally. It's everywhere. There's fellowship. The 12 steps are relatively simple.
Absolutely, no question about the benefit. But like any institution that's been around that long, there are, limitations,
Right.
things that need evolving.
Sure.
And McKowen points this out, and it was in your notes too. It was founded by men, for men. Initially, women and people of color weren't even included.
Wow.
And the language, the culture, it still kind of reflects that, like the Two Wise chapter in the big book.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a criticism, just context, understanding where it came from.
It's amazing how much the conversation around alcohol has changed just in the last decade or so.
Dramatically.
We've got things like Sober October, Dry January, sparking these broader conversations without all the old stigma.
Yeah, and the rise of alcohol-free bars, the whole non-alcoholic drinks industry booming.
Right. And sobriety showing up all over social media. Even the official term changing from alcoholic to alcohol use disorder, AUD, that feels much less loaded.
Exactly. Less stigmatizing. Which leads to this crucial point. Why this big shift now? Well, major media outlets are starting to frame alcohol use differently. Not as a them problem, but a we problem.
Particularly concerning women and alcohol. Right.
Yes, exactly. And maybe even more significantly, the debunking of those persistent myths, like, oh, red wine is good for your heart.
Yeah, I remember hearing that all the time.
We all did. But these major reports, like from the Lancet in 2018, the World Heart Federation in 2022, They've been really clear, unequivocal, actually.
What did they say?
Basically, there is no safe level of alcohol consumption. Full stop.
Wow, no safe level.
None. And that stark reality, well, it draws some pretty uncomfortable comparisons between how the alcohol industry has pushed information and, the tobacco companies back in the day.
That's a heavy comparison. So what we're seeing is this huge shift away from like a one-size-fits-all, mostly male, anonymous culture.
Right.
Towards something more integrated, inclusive, people being sober out loud.
Exactly. And the author's own experience with AA embracing parts, struggling with others, especially the dogma, it really shapes her book's framework. She pulls in science, psychology, trauma studies, wisdom traditions. It's much broader.
She's not a clinician, right? She's approaching it as a writer, observing the space for over a decade.
Precisely. Which allows her to talk about addiction as what it is.
Mm-hmm.
A human condition.
Mm-hmm.
And the person struggling, someone deserving compassion and healing, not just being told they need fixing by some rigid doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us right into this really profound idea, maybe even counterintuitive for some. You highlighted it in the sources as hitting really hard is not your fault.
Okay, it's not your fault. That sounds huge, especially with addiction where self-blame is just rampant. How does McKowen really get that across? Was there a specific moment for her?
There was. She talks about this really powerful moment back in 2013. She woke up hungover, terrified after getting a DUI. She'd left her daughter alone. Just rock bottom feelings.
Oh, wow.
And she confessed everything to a sober friend, Grant. And after listening, Grant just looked at her and said, "Girl, I want you to know something. You're not bad. You're sick." Like, not well right now. And it's not your fault. Not any more than it would be your fault if you had cancer.
That's intense. I can imagine, though, being deep in that shame, hearing that would be incredibly hard to actually accept. Was that her first reaction?
Totally. She basically rejected it, waved her hand, said, "Yeah, I know, but she couldn't hear it. Not really."
Right.
She was convinced her drinking was 100% her fault. She drank, she kept drinking, she knew better, she lost control. That internal resistance is so common, a massive barrier to healing.
But then she started going to AA meetings, observing people. What did she see there that started to maybe chip away at that self-blame?
Well, she noticed the people who seemed genuinely, sober, healthy, kind of peaceful. They weren't constantly beating themselves up. They were honest about mistakes, sure, but they didn't wear them like this heavy coat, like their whole identity. There was a lightness, a solidity, even humor about them.
Ah, okay.
And seeing that slowly, it allowed her to think, okay, maybe freedom from this constant self-hatred is possible for me too.
That makes a lot of sense. And so often, like you mentioned from the notes, addiction is tangled up with other things, prior conditions, trauma. Laura talks about her own childhood parents' divorce at sex, feeling like she had to make everything okay by just being okay herself. Her husband even pointed out their family situation later on. And what's striking is traditional AA texts, they don't really talk about prior conditions or trauma much, do they? That leaves a big gap for a lot of people.
Exactly. And there's actually a known psychological thing here. It's called internalized blame of self. It's a coping mechanism, especially for kids going through tough times.
How does that work?
It helps them survive by feeling like they have some control. They internalize, okay, this bad thing happened, it must be my fault. It gives a weird sense of agency in a chaotic situation.
Right, a survival tactic.
But long term,
Yeah.
it often leads to self-sabotage. And you see these patterns, addiction, trauma, just tragically passed down through generations.
Yeah.
But it's so important to be clear. Saying it's not your fault doesn't mean you have no responsibility. Not at all.
Okay, that's a key distinction.
It's about owning what you can control.
Yeah.
Your responses, your choices now, and letting go of blaming yourself for things you couldn't control, especially past trauma. It's about choosing to respond differently, maybe interrupting those cycles.
And we have to remember the context we live in, right? Alcohol it's the deadliest drug, but it's also the most socially acceptable, the most available.
Totally. A clinical psychologist once said, if alcohol were introduced today as a new drug, it would be banned instantly. So this widespread acceptance, this celebration even, it can feel like a kind of gaslighting. You struggle, and society implicitly says, what's wrong with you? Instead of acknowledging you're reacting naturally to a highly addictive substance.
And the scale of this, it's not minor. The stats you pulled, they're shocking. 2019, maybe 14 million people in the U.S. with alcohol use disorder.
14 million.
Right.
And only about 5% getting treatment.
5%. And for women, the increases were just Astronomical AUD up nearly 84% between 2002 and 2013. Cirrhosis up 50%. ER visits up 70%.
Yeah, these are epidemic numbers, truly.
So the core message here, it really lands. You are not the problem. You are not broken. You are part of a broken paradigm.
Exactly. And the solutions, they often lie in that messy middle, that both-and thinking.
Right.
Moving beyond just blaming yourself or blaming the substance entirely.
Right.
And that really brings us to the crucial internal work that recovery demands, starting with mindset.
Mindset. Okay, that feels fundamental for any change. Dr. Carol Dweck's idea of fixed versus growth mindset really stands out here. The idea that if you think your intelligence, your talents are just fixed, set in stone, it kind of holds you back, hinders resilience, peace.
Right. But if you believe they can be developed, that you can grow, that opens things up.
It makes you think, doesn't it? About your own limiting beliefs. We all have them. Oh, it's too late for me, or I just suck at this, or deep down I'm just bad. These things dictate so much of what we even try to do.
And that ties into another really interesting distinction the book makes, duty versus true responsibility.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Well, duty or obligation, that's often about living by someone else's rules, their shoulds. Society's expectations, maybe what your family taught you.
Yeah, the shoulds can be heavy.
Totally. Laura talks about feeling this as a new mom, like she should be able to juggle everything perfectly, keep all parts of her life running at 100%. And what does that lead to?
Resentment.
Resentment, exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're forcing yourself against your own grain.
Whereas true responsibility, that comes from inside.
Right. It's a conscious choice, aligned with your own values. It actually creates freedom, even if the choice itself is hard. It's doing something because you choose to, not because you feel you have to. That internal shift is huge.
It really is. Another big piece of internal work is facing our fear of pain, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Almost all our destructive behaviors, if you trace them back, they stem from trying to avoid pain.
Like fear of failure, fear of rejection, humiliation.
Fear of losing love, fear of not being enough.
Yeah.
And drinking, in this context, it's so often just a way to numb out, to escape the immediate sting of shame or anger or sadness.
But it's a trap, right? The paradox is alcohol gives that temporary relief, but in the end, it just piles on more suffering.
Exactly. McKowen has that great line. It's hard to get enough of something that almost works.
Ooh, yeah, that hits.
But in sobriety, that inevitable pain of just being human, it doesn't have to be wasted. It can be transmuted, turned into wisdom. It can teach you what you need to learn if you let it move through you.
Which connects to that quiet voice inside, that internal knowing she talked about.
The whispering truth.
Even when she was trying so hard to deny her drinking was a problem, she says, deep down, she knew.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that final no, whether it's to alcohol or any self-sabotaging pattern, it has to come from you. All the support in the world helps, but the decision is yours.
It has to be. Which leads to another really raw truth, one that you noted often brings tears to people's eyes when they hear it. It is unfair that this is your thing.
Yeah, tell me about that. She mentions her friend Mark saying something profound.
Yeah. After a meeting, he just said to her, just give up. Stop trying so hard. It all feels so unfair. And that validation is huge because society often denies that grief to people struggling with addiction.
Right. It's like you're supposed to just quietly overcome it, repent, fix yourself, maybe feel ashamed.
Exactly. Without acknowledging the sheer unfairness and the loss involved.
And this connects to Brené Brown's work on shame, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Brené tells us shame needs three things to really take hold: secrecy, silence, and judgment.
So validation breaks that cycle.
It's incredibly powerful. Just someone saying, I know, it does suck. It's this healing encounter. It lets you feel human, worthy of compassion, instead of being lost in that exhausting fight against the pain itself.
And a huge part of that pain, that challenge, is it's basically relearning how to live, right?
Yeah.
You highlighted that as particularly daunting.
Yeah, for Laura, drinking from 15 to 36, sobriety meant learning everything for the first time without alcohol. How to work, socialize, date, comfort herself, even to be bored.
It's not like starting over. It's like starting from scratch in many ways, giving up a whole identity.
Totally. So what does this mean for you listening? The message is really, it is unfair that this is your thing, because you don't deserve it. It's not happening because you're broken or bad or weak. It just happens. You didn't ask for it. You're not being punished.
Yeah.
But it's yours.
Yeah.
And reframing it that way, not as a flaw, but as this challenge, this life force asking you to grow, to meet it, that changes things.
And if drinking is your thing, even if you feel like you're functioning, the book is pretty clear about the trajectory.
Yeah, it only goes one way. From bad to worse.
Yeah.
Like compound interest on a debt, she says, or a black hole pulling everything in.
So the question becomes unavoidable.
Will you accept it now or later? She tells that story about her friend Dev, never had huge external blowups, but just constantly thinking about drinking, worrying about it.
And her observation was,
People who don't have an issue with alcohol don't worry about having an issue with alcohol. That internal nag, that constant mental energy spent on it, that's the signal, even without chaos outside.
which brings us to maybe the ultimate question in the book, the one you flagged as really cutting through everything. Are you free?
Yeah, and this isn't about external freedom like doing whatever you want. It's internal.
Yeah.
Are you free from being owned by this thing? Can you respond to life actively? Can you trust yourself? Can you move through the world with dignity? That kind of intractable internal freedom. She admits she couldn't hide from that question herself.
And it loops back to pain again. Alcohol promises relief but adds suffering. Sobriety means facing pain, but
But that pain can be used. It can move through you, become wisdom. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to just be destructive.
this is where connection becomes so vital, isn't it? You can't do it alone.
Absolutely not. She shares that great little story from early sobriety, freaking out mentally about an office happy hour.
Yeah.
And her friend just laughs and says, Laura, you're just another noodle in the soup.
Ah, I like that.
Right. It just instantly normalizes all those weird, awkward, embarrassing thoughts we think are only ours. Like Brene Brown says, shame just can't survive when it's met with empathy.
That shared experience, it's critical. Friends and family can love you, but people in recovery often need others who get it. Exactly.
You can feel totally connected in your life generally, but completely isolated in your recovery if you don't have those specific people who understand that part of your experience.
The good news is there are more options now, more inclusive spaces.
Definitely. We're seeing more diverse identity-specific groups, BIPOC meetings, queer-focused, women's, men's, programs like the Luckiest Club, Monuments, She Recovers, Reframe. They offer these kinds of tailored spaces.
So the message is sort of, all of you is welcome. Maybe not everywhere, but definitely here.
Exactly. Find your here.
And when you're looking for that connection, the book talks about crabs versus mirrors. What's that about?
Yeah, it's a useful metaphor. Crabs are the people, sometimes unintentionally, who try to pull you back down into the old ways. Like the spouse who accidentally orders you a drink, or friends who keep pushing you to have just one.
Okay, crabs in a bucket pulling each other down.
Exactly. Whereas mirrors are people who reflect back to you the sober self you want to become, the future you're aiming for.
Like the story of the woman giving her the 17-year sobriety coin.
Yes. That gave her this shimmering knowing, this tangible hope. That woman was a mirror.
Finding those people can feel huge, though, like changing your whole social circle.
It can feel overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the point is, it takes a village, but it starts with one. Just one person, one midwife, one mirror, one fellow noodle.
So start small.
Start small. Check out online groups. Many are free or have scholarships.
Yeah.
And, crucially, share. Don't just listen passively in meetings, even if it's hard. That vulnerability, that's where the connection and transformation really happen.
Okay, so connection is key, but then there's this idea of moving towards something. Just stopping, the final no, that's only half of it.
Right. The ultimate goal is moving toward a bigger yes. And this isn't necessarily some grand public achievement. It's more internal, an invisible experience of meaning, purpose, something that really animates your life.
Can you give some examples from the book of what that looks like?
Yeah, the book has some really inspiring ones. There's Casey, a musician turned business coach, who now weaves music, yoga, play into leadership training. Melissa, using her own experience to build this huge free health and wellness movement. Kelvin, who went from being incarcerated to becoming a licensed addiction coach, sharing meditation and sound healing.
Wow.
Ayana, founding a nonprofit tackling trauma, addiction, oppression, becoming an activist, especially for people of color in recovery.
So the common thread isn't fame or fortune.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's this deep, unshakable contentment, a sense of meaning. Even when life is hard, even when there's suffering, it's kind of colored with purpose. It shifts recovery from just running away from the bad stuff to actively moving towards something good.
And this bigger yes, it often comes through these big transformative forces like grace, acceptance, forgiveness.
Exactly. Kelvin's story is a powerful example of love as grace. He's 31, in jail for domestic assault, stemming from this childhood filled with rigid rules and unprocessed pain. And in prison, he had a choice: fall back into old ways or engage with what was offered. He chose to engage meetings, meditation, and he felt this inner shift. He said he felt more free than I ever had on the outside.
It's grace.
That's grace. That undeserved favor, an opening where there should be no opening.
Then there's acceptance. The story about Sarah and the rescue dog.
Yeah, that one really illustrates love as acceptance. She adopts this dog with serious health issues. Initially, she wants to fix him out of this sense of duty.
Right.
But then, sitting on the floor with him, just being with him in his struggle, it shifts. She has this visceral experience of acceptance.
So acceptance doesn't fix the problem.
No, but it changes how you hold it. With more grace, more lightness, it changes your relationship to the difficulty.
And finally, forgiveness.
Yeah.
Laura's own story about snapping at her daughter.
Yeah, a really raw, personal moment. Hungover, irritable, she snaps. And the deep realization wasn't just guilt, but that she was already forgiven. By her daughter, by life, maybe. And the real work was setting herself free from that self-imposed shame.
Because holding on to mistakes, defining yourself by them.
It's ruinous. It's not noble. It just keeps the suffering going. Forgiveness isn't about excusing bad behavior. It's about releasing yourself from being chained to it.
So the journey, the progression, McKowen summarizes it as.
Yeah. Impossible, difficult, strange, normal. Wouldn't have it any other way.
That's quite a path.
It is. And it's made possible by consistent effort. And remembering that number 9, the last of her 9 things, is a promise. To remind each other, to remember the truth, and crucially, to do it together.
Okay, so to help people do it, the book offers practical tools. Let's dig into a few that really stood out in your notes. First, this idea of honesty and breaking secrets.
Yes, this is fundamental. McKowen argues that being disconnected from your own truth is often where the pain starts. Keeping secrets isn't just lonely, it's corrosive. It breeds anxiety, depression.
So the advice isn't tell everyone everything.
No, not necessarily. It's more about having a trusted circle, spreading the information out. And if sharing something would actually harm someone else or be an unfair burden,
Then what?
then find an outside objective person, a therapist, a sponsor, someone who can hold it without being directly impacted. The goal is releasing your internal burden, not creating external messes.
Makes sense. Okay, tool number 2. Boundaries and anger. We often see resentment as the big red flag here.
Exactly. Resentment usually means a boundary has been crossed or needs to be set.
Yeah.
And anger. The book reframes it completely, not as bad or negative, as an asset, as your body's alarm system yelling, hey, something needs protecting here.
So don't stuff it down.
Don't stuff it down. Observe it. Allow it. Ask yourself, what boundary was broken? What needs restoring? Anger becomes a guide, not just a problem to get rid of.
Right. Then there's the numbing inventory. This sounds intense.
It is. It's a really thorough, honest look at your history with substances or numbing behaviors. What did you use, when, how often, why, what were the consequences? It's about radical self-awareness.
And the book advises caution here.
Yes, definitely plan for some aftercare, because digging this stuff up can bring up difficult feelings. And if you have a history of serious trauma, absolutely consult a mental health professional before or during this process.
Sharing it helps.
Sharing it with a trusted recovery person, yeah. It takes it out of the realm of private shame and makes it a shared reality, which can be incredibly freeing.
Okay, and finally, let's talk about embodiment, the idea that our issues live in our tissues.
Right. So much recovery work is very mental, top-down, cerebral, which is important. But this book really champions bottom-up approaches too.
Like what?
Things like breath work, meditation, mindfulness, trauma-informed yoga, practices that help you connect with and process feelings and sensations in your body.
Especially important if there's trauma involved.
Crucial. Because healing isn't just about understanding intellectually, it's about integrating that healing physically, releasing stored tension and trauma from the nervous system. That's where deep peace often lies.
So, wrapping up this deep dive, we've really unpacked a lot here. Recovery, through the lens of Laura McKowen's work, it's this whole journey, isn't it?
It really is. From that heavy self-blame towards real, profound responsibility, from isolation and secrets towards genuine connection, and from just trying to escape fear towards embracing this expansive, bigger yes.
It's a hopeful path, ultimately.
It is. And maybe here's a final thought for you to consider. If facing our deepest pains, our things, the stuff we most want to run from, if that's what allows us to experience things like undeserved grace, radical acceptance, boundless forgiveness, then what profound, maybe unexpected gifts might you unlock for yourself, for the people around you? What could blossom if you chose to walk this path, not just to survive, but to really become your truest, most authentic self?